Hi, I'm Christina.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Wayz Podcast. Today, I'm going to let you take the reins. So go ahead and tell everybody what we're going to be talking about in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you and I were coming up with episode ideas, we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about our personal experiences. And I know something that you had heavily talked about with me was your personal experiences with past relationships. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I thought, I would love to do an episode in a sort of a therapeutic way, being able to sort of just talk to you about your experiences with, your past relationships and where you were versus where you are now. And I know that there has been quite an immense amount of story and, events and also some traumas there as well. And so I just, I thought today, it would be really great for us to, sit down and sort of discuss some of those stories, because I think that a lot of our viewers and just people in general, go through so many hardships with relationships, where they feel like they might feel stuck, or they feel that maybe they're not in the space where they want to be in their relationship, and they want to find ways to, either better communicate or even find ways to, have the courage to maybe even possibly leave certain relationships as well. So that being said, those are a lot of the things that I kind of wanted to sit down and talk to you about today. And so also, without further ado, for a disclaimer as well, we're going to be talking a lot about relationships in regards to both sort of, in a way, we're going to talk a lot about some domestic violence, as well as there's some other things that, is that correct? Is that...
I mean, whatever comes up, whatever comes up today comes up. Like, you kind of know my story. It's very extensive in different types of things, I guess you could say, regardless if it's like verbal, physical things, like emotional, any aspect, you know what I mean? And that's really what I want to kind of show in this podcast, is that you're not alone necessarily. Like, I thought at the time a lot of the stuff was normal, and now I know it's not. Yeah. And no, I just want to be open and honest about my experience in hopes that somebody can relate, somebody can get, if anything, like courage, or at least some like realizations from it. Because we're all people. We all go through these crazy things. And I think by sharing real lived experiences is how we all grow and learn and connect on a deeper level. So definitely, I mean, like, we'll get into it at the end. You could even kind of say there's definitely going to be some like bad mouthing, like negative things said that hurt me emotionally. Like, I was physically hurt a few times. Like, we'll get into it.
I'll put a proper disclaimer in at the end. I think that's what I was trying to get at. So I was like, hey, like full disclosure, today's topic will have some discussions regards to, like variety of sort of domestic violences that have gone on in your life. So that to the viewers, I just wanted to give preface to. So with that, I want to kind of give you the floor. And I really, kind of want you to sort of discuss why you wanted to why you wanted to share your story today.
Yeah, completely. And it's kind of what I just said, is that through life experiences, if anybody can learn, grow, and just connect and understand that they're not alone. People go through these types of things. I used to think they were normal. They're not. You can grow past it and come out stronger on the other end. The moments that you're going through right now do not have to define you. And once again, I think when we all just share our real, genuine, like, truth, it gives everybody a chance to learn, grow, and connect on a deeper level. Yeah. And that's what I really hope people get from this, is I've grown so much from it. And on that note too, I even want to put in here, like, I hold no hate in my heart at all towards anybody ever in my life at this point, like especially my ex. And I'm sure what will come up is part of my family members, because now I, like, when you can connect the dots on certain things in your life, like, a lot of things are intertwined, right? Yeah. So on that note too, it's just like, I love my family so much. Like, I have the utmost respect for my mother, for my dad, for my sisters. Like, I wish them nothing but the best, and I love them so much. If I say some things here that might come out negatively towards them, I don't mean it that way. This is just my lived experience. Same with like my ex. I wish him nothing but the best, or any of my exes, if other like shorter term relationships come up. I wish nobody nothing but the best. I've learned so much and grown so much from these experiences. If anything, I'm happy that they occurred, because right now I love who I am. I love the state that I'm in. And I love that I can come here and talk to you about these things from a perspective of growth. And I'm okay. You know what I mean? So if I can help somebody who needs the help, like, yes, let me live through it and be that voice of reason right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, talking about, having those lived experiences, being that voice of reason, can you share with the audience about, what brought us to talk about this topic today?
Yeah. And I also want to say too, like in this time, I'm not completely innocent myself. I'll be the first to admit that. Like, it does take two to tango. I was the one who chose to stay, especially during certain events. Like, I'll even mention times where I definitely wasn't behaving any way that I'm proud of. But like at the time, that's what I knew. That's how I reacted. Now I would hope if I was ever put in a situation, which God forbid, I don't think I'll ever put myself in those situations anymore, I would handle the situations differently.
Got it.
But I mean, that's why we want to talk about this today, right? Though, is just so people can learn from the experiences. And this was my relationship. So I was with this man for 6 years. I've had other relationships before him, other after, none that have were that long and such an influential point in my life. And after going through the motions and analyzing the relationship, I just realized I've had so many realizations through that I want to share with people, I guess. Yeah. And once again, it's just, we both have had interesting life experiences, and everybody has. Let's just talk about it. I want to get people comfortable with saying things.
Yeah. So I would like to start with the beginning on that. So, can you talk to me about kind of like this person that you had known in your past? You had dated them for close to 5 years.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So can you kind of start from the beginning on some of that, on what you sort of, was the pull to be in that relationship, as well as, what were some of the things as well that, brought you sort of, happiness, or sort of, the things that, made you feel like this is something that I wanted to keep and stay in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So I guess total, we were together about 6 years, officially probably 3 to 4, because situationship for sure. I want to say, I don't even know how old I was when I first met him. I knew him for a number of years before we actually started hooking up and then dating. So I think I met him when I was 15, 16 years old. Yeah. So we were friends for a long time. I became friends with his sister and friends with girls he was dating at the time too. He was just around, but he was good looking. Oh, definitely. I think it was mostly the personality too. To this day I still am, but back then more so too. Big personality, very charismatic, on the board of narcissistic, that type of grandiose type of personality that at the time I'm just I think for one, now that I kind of connect the dots in a lot of things, is in a way he really reflected my parents' emotional depth and behavior and stuff like that. And I'm a firm believer also that until you acknowledge past traumas or you move past things that are hindering you, you're just going to keep attracting the lessons you need to be learning. You attract what's familiar to you, regardless if it's good or bad. So on that note, he definitely possessed qualities that I feel like my mother had. And at the time too, looking back at it, so once again, he was the popular guy. He wasn't even from my town, but he was this guy. He's older than me, super good looking, super charismatic. Everybody wanted him. And in my head, since I wasn't accepted a lot in my household, I think subconsciously I'm I need to have the best of everything so that I can be accepted, so that people can look and be oh, she actually got this guy that everybody wants. Look at what she's doing. I feel I always felt the need to prove myself in a way. So I always had to go for the one everybody wanted, and that was self-validating me.
You immediately brought something up that I want to discuss, and that was that you said you noticed a lot of qualities in him that you had in your mom. Mm-hmm. Can you discuss a little bit more about that and what that meant to you?
Yeah. And on that note too, I want to go back to I love my mother so much. I have the utmost respect for her, and she did a phenomenal job raising me and my sisters in the circumstances she was given. But that doesn't mean she's perfect. Yeah. Adults are essentially still broken children and wounds that they have never healed either. So in that aspect, my ex was definitely a little bit more self-centered and selfish. He always put himself above everybody else, which my mom often did as a kid. Like, she would put her own comfort above my comfort, I feel like, a lot of times. Also, the way that he would behave was very sporadic. He had no really emotional, what's the word for it? Emotional intelligence, but also just like
be
he wasn't
grounded.
able to calm himself down. Yeah.
Okay.
So what you see is what you get. Like, we'll go 0 to 60 in a heartbeat. And to like me as a kid and a lot of other like teenage girls, sometimes they think that like masculine male, they're like, let's go all the time, is attractive. But my mom was like that. Like, she was often the person who wouldn't like calmly address situations. She would go ahead and just like act how she wanted to act. Very sporadic, not really like proactive, just reactive. So that's, I feel like, going back and looking at that is like, this man was never going to love me, ever. He was always going to love himself 100 times more, which is fine. I do believe love yourself first, but not in like a way where it's hindering the people around you to the point where it's toxic in a way.
You immediately brought up the fact that you felt like this man was never going to love you. And can you discuss with me about, and the audience too, about like, when was the first time that you noticed that? What were some of the characteristics that had shown?
Well, I don't know if there was ever a first time I noticed it. Even from the beginning, I really knew this. And once again, another thing that I've noticed as we talk, like, things are going to come up that like these realizations that I've always had, is that I think I was always seeking a validation from him to get like validation in a way from my childhood home, from my family, because like he was the person where if I could get his validation, then I feel like it would fix everything in the past, right?
Yeah.
Like, since he so closely resembled like my parent figures growing up, if I could fix him and like let him love me, then in a way that's me saying, okay, then I am lovable. Because from the people that are like him in my life, I didn't think I was lovable. So I always said, even too early in the relationship, in an us meeting, I'm like, he needed me. I wanted him. So because the good qualities about me that I still possess today is like, I've always been very driven. I'm always have had my stuff together in a way. I've always been very compassionate. And I put a lot more effort into our relationship, regardless if it was a friendship at the time or a romantic relationship, than he did. So I helped fix a lot of his problems. I was always the person who was there when he needed somebody, and he needed somebody. So I think from the get-go, I kind of knew.
Yeah.
Because in a way, once again, like, I was helping him selfishly because I needed self-validation through helping him.
What were some of the things that you put more into the relationship that he did when it comes to that like helping side?
I mean, just in general, I was always the person telling him how like amazing he was and self-validating him, not self-validating, but validating him in a way. Also, in regards to that too, I was always the person where it's just, I'm pretty smart. I can figure things out very quickly. Like, if you need to like learn how to, like, when we would plan trips, regardless if it was with friends, I was the one there. I was always the one. I had a car at a young age too. I'm like, you need a car, I got you. Like, you need somebody to go buy the beer because I had a fake, like, I got you. No problem. Like, you need somebody to buy the food, because even at a young age, I was hustling. Like, I was working 2 jobs, even in my teens, like throughout when we started dating in our early 20s, I was making more money than him. So I'd be like, you need money, I got you. You know what I mean? Like, you need me to figure this out for you, I got you. I know even, and this is when we were in more of a serious relationship, and I think he started to develop actual more like genuine feelings for me. But like, I helped him pay for a semester of school too, because he couldn't afford to do it. Like, I'm always that person, and you know this, and this is one thing I love about myself, but like, I'm that person who's always there. And when you know that, certain people can abuse that.
Yeah.
So
what made you want to create the sort of what I like to call the likability factor? Like, you said you wanted to, like, also at the same time you were going out of your way to sort of be liked. In a way, like, you were always like that person, hey, I got you. You know, if you need something, I'm going to be there for you. You know, where do you think a lot of that sort of thought process came from?
Well, if you say it's like a likability factor, for him, it definitely was. I'm like, this is my best quality. I'm going to use it to my advantage when it comes to like getting this guy that I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let me show you how much you need me for you to want me. You know what I mean? In a way, like, I don't even know if what I would call my idea of him even love. I want, like, it was probably infatuation because I was seeking a validation. And around, like, I did grow to definitely love him, but in the beginning it was kind of like something there. I know this is a lesson I have to be had. But in regards to just other relationships, I feel like now that's who I am, because that's who I needed somebody to be for me. Is I often didn't get a lot of guidance growing up. I oftentimes didn't get a lot of support. And I don't know where that came from. I don't know. Even from like the get-go, I have a very close family friend who's like, you've always just been a caring person. So I hope that that's just something I was born with and never lost, because essentially I do believe a lot of us are just naturally caring beings. But now, like, the one thing that still to this day is true is I wish somebody was there for me to help me with things and just be that caring person. In my mind, I'm like, if I can help, why wouldn't I? It just seems like second nature to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I know that we talked a lot about, some of the positive things, or sort of quote unquote positive things that really, sort of kept you going in that relationship, as far as, just making sure that you were always going to be there for him. You're helping him out, you're,
and he did things for me too. Yeah. It wasn't completely just like all take and no give. Like there's plenty of things that I was attracted to him besides just like who he was, like the figure, who he was as a person. You know what I mean? He had other good qualities, definitely. But I do believe that I put more into the relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, that being said with that, what were some of the things as well that, when was the first time that you noticed that this is maybe not the greatest relationship?
The first time that I noticed, or the first time where I'm like, okay, this isn't actually working out?
How about first time that you noticed?
Oh my gosh. So it's hard to say, because once again, like, he dragged me along in the situationship probably for a good 1.5 to 2 years. Like, everybody knew we were together, talking, whatever you want to call it, like hooking up, constantly together. His mom, like, I was always with his family and his friends. He was always like at my house. So I feel like even then I kind of still kept things on the back burner, even though that should have been a clear sign, where it's just like, you treat me like I'm a girlfriend. You ask all these things of me. You get mad whenever I'm around another guy, but you're allowed to do whatever you want. And it's my fault for getting mad because I should know better. Like, that's happened plenty of times. Even when we were official, he'd be like, well, why are you going through my phone? You already know what you're going to see. So I think the first time where I actually was just like, this lives rent free in my head. I don't know what it was, but we were at a party and I invited friends that he even knew. They weren't more my friends, but he knew them. Like, he's hung out with them before. I invited them to a party and he blew up, like, started screaming at me, calling me names, left the party essentially. And I like chased after him, of course, like I always do. We went back to my house too, and I tried to get him to talk to me. And he's just like, no, I'm not talking to you. I'll admit, I like locked my bedroom door and I'm like, we're talking. Like, why are you freaking out on me? This guy actually jumped out of the second story of my house, the window. And that's when I was just like, in my mind, I'm like, this is kind of messed up. Like, for when he just jumped out of my window and freaked out on me for what I don't think's a good reason, let alone I don't think I should have locked him in my bedroom either. But I'm like, he just jumped. And like, I'm like, this guy literally just jumped out of a second story window to like get away from me. Like, that's kind of messed up. Why am I with this person? But I still continued to like want to be with him. And down the line too, also, that was probably the first time he did it. But I realized going out a lot of times, I was always the person where I'm like, after 2 a.m., I want to go home. I loved to go out in my early 20s, was not that person who wants to be out until 5 o'clock in the morning. He would actually just pick fights with me intentionally so he's able to stay out longer. So I don't know if that aided into it. I don't know if it was me inviting guys there. Who knows? But I think that was one when I like was like, this is weird, but I don't really care. I'll stick with it. There was so many different things, regardless if it was him, his family. Like, his mom would literally like bang on his door when we were at his place, calling me a bitch and a hoe because she had like drinking problems. She was also an emotionally immature adult, like that type of name calling. The time, and I've shared this with you and I'll share it here because I feel like this is kind of what you're waiting for and I'm open to sharing it, is like the time that I actually like left for the longest, it was like 2 weeks. I moved out of our house we were living in together, was because It was a holiday. It was a summer holiday, not 4th of July, but maybe Memorial Day or something. We were pretty much drinking all day. We actually went to like a fest with my family. They were over at our house. They kind of left when his friends started to come over. And then I just remember it was like 2:00 in the morning and people are still coming over while I'm in the bedroom trying to sleep. And then I know his sister came over with her friends, and I know these girls, they're like not good girls. They're not people I really want in my home. Mm-hmm. And I remember texting him like, it's like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. We've been up all day. Like, tell everyone to go home, come to bed. Just wasn't it. I don't know if he was texting me, ignoring it, what, but I got pissed because it's like, I just keep hearing people coming in and out of my house. So I go in the backyard and I'm telling him like, tell everyone to go home, come to bed. Let alone, I realized that I should not be with somebody who is the opposite of me in a way where they want to stay up all the time, and I can't judge him for being who he is, and that's who he was. I knew that's who he was. I wanted him to change. But I go in the backyard. I'm like, I don't like the people who are at my house. Tell everybody to leave. And he's like, no, I'm not doing it. I poured a beer over his head and called him like a piece of shit. His sister grabs a bottle of Tito's, a full handle, bashes it over my head. And obviously, like, I fall to the ground. I wake up within a second. I don't really know if I got knocked out or not. It all happened so quick. I was bleeding from like the side of my head. And it's so crazy though, because it all seemed like it happened in slow motion, but I ended up driving myself to the hospital. If anything, he told me to get out of my own house because of the events that just occurred. I remember he was screaming at me, telling me to leave as I'm like bleeding from my head. I went to the hospital. Did not hear like a damn thing from him. I got stitches in my head. My mom came. And then after that, my mom drove me back to the house. I packed up some stuff and went back to like my mom's house. I didn't stay the night there, but like I didn't even get a single text from him either.
What was your mom's response to seeing you in the hospital with a bleeding head?
She wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Is it weird though that like it didn't surprise her either though?
Why did it not surprise her?
Well, at that point, it was probably like the 4th or 5th year into our relationship. Like we were living together. Everybody knew who he was. They knew the relationship. They knew who I was. They knew the relationship we had. And also growing up too, once again, I come from a kind of chaotic household where it's just like, no, that's not any scenario any mom wants to see their daughter in, regardless of our relationship or not. But, you know, after you see things time and time again, you kind of just like, nothing surprises you anymore. It's like the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
That was like the drawing line for me, not necessarily for everybody else.
Have you ever, so one of the biggest things that I also wanted to discuss with that story is something in therapy that we often talk about is the cycle of abuse.
Yeah.
And so we talk about a catastrophizing, like pretty much catastrophe. You have this huge event that happens, that takes place. And then, you know, you have the healing phase of, you know, being able to maybe like after it, you know, you all take some time apart, don't really talk. It's kind of you're back and forth. It's very iffy. Everyone kind of walks on eggshells. And then you enter the honeymoon period, and where you can sort of are rekindling, you know, that initial quote unquote what you describe as love, or you know that likableness, you know, that
like the reason why you fell in love to begin with.
The reason why you fell in love to begin with. I cannot English today. And then the final step being then getting close, getting personal, things feeling like they're going back to normal, and then there's another catastrophe. And then it starts all over again.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you said that, you know, your mom in a way knew that, you know, she wasn't surprised that this happened. You in a way almost seemed like you weren't even surprised that
Not
it
really,
happened.
no.
Why'd you stay?
And that's funny you bring that up though too, because I know that process, and that's the thing with that relationship. There wasn't even that process. And that's why right now talking to you, I find this kind of comical, even though it's not, just because now growing so far and loving myself so much more deeply, there, like, he was never the person apologizing. There was never any honeymoon phase where he'd come show up with flowers and say, I'm sorry. It was always me leaving, me having a panic attack, like, oh shit, I just left the only person who actually loves me right now. Let me fight to get him back. I'll admit it was my fault. I was wrong to be doing, regardless of his role in it. I take all the blame.
Yeah.
There was never that, I'm sorry, please come back, like you see in movies or stuff like that. It was always just me coming back, feeling so uneasy, like I just lost a part of me. And part of it, though, like looking back, though, is this is what I think is so crazy. I was genuinely scared nobody was ever going to love me again.
Yeah.
Especially because I think that, like, once again, I talk about going back to my family. Like, I never felt loved growing up. I didn't. It was hard for me to even say the word I love you to anybody. It took me years into like my 20s to even start saying I love you to my parents. And so finally, when I got somebody who I thought loved me, I would, regardless if it was right or wrong or what was being done to me, I just hung on to it for dear life.
Do you think that, you talk about being able to hang on to that relationship and the feelings that went with it. What did you feel like you lost in yourself by staying in that relationship?
I think I probably lost in it the ability to actually know myself fully and love myself. And that's me saying the ability because once again, at a young age, I don't think I was ever like encouraged to learn to be who I was or do the things that I really want to do. Because I'll admit, like, my mom was a single mom. My parents divorced when I was like 8 years old. I had 3 other sisters. She had 4 girls in 5 years. It's rough. And I think, yeah, definitely she could have encouraged me to do the things that I want to do. But oftentimes we were put into a box of one, not individual kids. So I feel like I lost myself very early on of knowing who I was and lacking that love. But if I decided that like I need to learn to love myself first and find out who I am before trying to seek validation in somebody else, I probably would have found out who I was at a younger age and learned to love myself at a younger age. On that note, too, though, I do believe everything happens for a reason. So maybe like he was my process in learning to love myself. He was my process in actually getting established in my life in a way because I was seeking some sort of stable ground because I didn't have that at home. I was like trying to find a way, like a family in him, and his family was very similar to mine, if not more dramatic, but they both mimicked same behaviors. It was both chaotic households.
So in a way it was comfortable for you.
Yeah, completely. Even though it sucked and my heart broke a lot of time, but heartbreak wasn't anything new. Heartbreaking wasn't anything new to me at that age either. Feeling sick to my stomach and on edge and anxious wasn't new to me. So like, yeah, no, they're not comfortable feelings, but it was, yeah, something I was familiar with. So that's what I accepted. And on that note too, I do want to give him credit. Like at the time we were both going through nursing school together too, when I was dating him in my college years, and I'm forever grateful for like, he's a very intelligent man. For sure. And I'm forever grateful for like him helping me get through those days, because without him also, though, I don't know if I could have. I don't know if being just at home with my mom and whatever sister was still living there at the time, I would have been able to focus on doing that stuff. Sometimes you need somebody in your corner. And he was, even though it still wasn't in the right way. So I'm forever grateful for that. And once again, I do believe everything happens for a reason, because I think through that relationship, I was able to realize then, like, I need to learn to love myself. Like, he gave me the stable ground of, like, getting me through college, like, moving out of my household to our household, where instead of, like, being in a family, I see him for who he is and realizing, oh, this isn't right. Because when we got our own place together and we were away from his family and my family, I feel like that's when things started getting into perspective for me. But he was the tool for me to do that. So
what do you feel like that through this process you've gained?
Through the process of like
the process
that relationship?
Of that relationship, what have you gained in what you know now?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, like I'm fully convinced that, and I do have very good faith in myself, but I wasn't as strong as a person now. I mean, back then as I am now. So like, who knows what would have happened? what route I would have taken in regards to my education. Because I am so forever grateful right now for my nursing degree, because it once again has brought me here, and it helps me pursue my interest in just health in general, and psych and mental health and physical health and that kind of stuff. So I can say that he definitely helped me in that aspect for sure. Like I said, at the time, he was not that, and it's so weird though too, because I had good friends, guy friends, who were like actually in love with me, and wholeheartedly I can say that he lived down the street from me, literally had my back 24/7. Like, that ex of 6 years was the guy when things were happening in my family. Like, I'd call him crying on the phone. He'd be like, what do you expect? This is nothing new. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I would call the guy down the street, and he'd be like, I got you, baby girl. Don't worry. Like, come over. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, those are the two men that I had. And I chose the one that represented like my known relationships. And I think it was just through the process I had to learn things. You know what I mean? I don't know necessarily certain role. Like, I just had to learn. I think that's what it is. And I'm so forever grateful that one day I listened to my gut and said, it's time to leave. Yeah. If anything, what I got through that is learning to stand on my own 2 feet, be independent, learning that this isn't right by myself, and listening to my gut, because essentially what got me to leave was like listening to my gut. It was no crazy situation like getting a bottle bashed over in my head. It was the same fight we've had for the 50th time, me sleeping in our spare bedroom, and one day I was just like, screw this. Yeah. It's a process. It's emotions. Sometimes you do have to go through it. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to realize it. Yeah.
For a lot of people I know that, for our viewers and just for people in, the general public, I often get asked this question a lot in therapy. And that was, when do I leave? When is the time do I go? And if I go, how do I do it? And I know that you just mentioned a little bit there that you were sleeping in the guest bedroom and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, you had this feeling, this gut instinct of being like, you need to get out, you need to leave. So how did you not only listen to that intuition, but how did you follow through with it?
Yeah. And let me put out there that there's a huge difference between like, I actually cannot leave, and I don't know if I should or shouldn't. Because I do want to address that there are people that like them leaving is kind of a dangerous situation. It also a lot of times does rely on like income or children involved. So I do get certain circumstances are definitely more difficult than others. I do feel blessed where for me, it wasn't like we didn't have kids involved. We weren't engaged or married yet. Like, we didn't have combined finances. Like, I feel blessed where I did have that independence. So it was, when I realized it, like, actually leaving was not that hard. It was me getting the courage inside me to leave that was hard. And I think what really just stuck with me finally is, once again, now at this point, I'm towards my mid-20s. I've started a career by myself. I am making a steady income. I am able now, I'm not stuck in the bubble of what I used to know. Like, I'm meeting new people through my job or like through the gym or stuff like that. And I'm starting to realize that like, there's more to life than this chaotic lifestyle. You know what I mean? Because it's so hard when you're younger though, because the community that you're in is what you kind of have to stay in. Yeah. You can't go wander off by yourself as a young adult. You really can't. So I think when I just started gaining more independence, both financially and like friendship wise, I realized I remember laying in the bed and his mom texted me at like 2:00 in the morning, drunk, calling me a piece of shit for like, this happens. It was nothing new. It's happened so many times.
Yeah. But for you to say that that's nothing new is it's a lot.
Because that was normal though. That's the thing. So like I grew up where like, and to this day, certain family members still do this where they'll text very mean things because they think it's okay. Like name calling, degrading
but that verbal
stuff.
Abuse is never okay.
Yeah, but they like, that's the thing. That's what we grew up in. So they think it's okay. Now I know it's not. Yeah. And now I know that that's more of a them thing than a me thing. Where back then I thought it was a me thing. It's not. So, but yeah, that was something that happened pretty frequently throughout the years I was with this man. And I remember going to our main bedroom then where he was sleeping. Yeah, I was sleeping in the guest room. He was sleeping in the king size bed. And I was just like, your mom texted me again. And he's like, well, then you should block her. And I'm just like, I just remember being like, yeah, this isn't normal. I was like, I shouldn't have to. He's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. And that's one thing I do respect him for, is he actually always genuinely gave me 100% of who he was. Mm-hmm. He never hid anything. He never made himself to be this amazing person, like this rock star boyfriend that does all the right things. You know what I mean? He never like pretended to be anything he wasn't. I was the one who chose to stay. So I just remember hearing that, and I literally just like said, I'm like, I can't do this. Like right there, I didn't even think, I'm like, I can't do this. I'm leaving. He's like, okay. Because I've said it before. I've left for a few days before and I came back. No big deal. But no, it was just like in that moment, I was like laying in bed and I knew we were getting to a point too, where I'm like, we're either getting engaged, we're getting married, and we're in this after being together for this long in your 20s. Cause that's what you do in your 20s, right? You like get married and all that kind of stuff, settle down, or I'm doing something else. And I just remember sitting there, I'm like, I don't want to do this the rest of my goddamn life. I cannot. That was just the feeling I had, is I'm like, I thought to myself, I'm like, do I want to do this the rest of my life? And it was a hell no. So it was hard for sure, especially everybody getting involved as we were like breaking up too. And I was packing up my stuff. It was definitely difficult, but I was grateful at that moment too, to actually have my mother, who was like, yes, come stay with me while you figure your stuff out. I knew I had a place to go. I was fortunate enough with that aspect, at least, regardless of how we felt about each other or not. And I was like, I have a way out. I need to take it. Cause looking back now, if I stayed, we would have totally been divorced, and it would have been 10 times more harder than it was in that moment. So
what do you feel like that through all of this, what have you learned most about yourself?
Realize your worth. Okay. Now something that, and people ask me this all the time. They're like, why don't you date that often? Or why don't I have a boyfriend right now? Mm-hmm. And to me, who I spend my time around now and who I give my energy to is so important. After being in a relationship where we were not on equal levels of like what we wanted in life or who we were, or being in something that was, once again, like I say borderline abusive, but clearly like abusive, like I'm not tolerating that anymore. Once you find know your worth, and honestly, like self-love, definitely. Like once you have that, nobody can really disturb your peace. Now I'm over here, when I sat back and realized like, okay, our relationship was a reflection of this other relationship in my life. And it was something that I thought was valuable to me because that's what I was taught, but it's actually not. This is what I thought was normal because it was what I was surrounded with younger, but it's actually not. This is what I was told that you should do and need, but I don't need to do that. And I don't need that thing. Once I realized who I was and like learned to love myself, and what everybody else's issue is their own issue. Or if you don't love me the way that I deserve to be loved or that I need to be loved, like, I'm good. I got me. Because essentially, like, yeah, you hope for a partner who is on an equal playing ground as you, right? Mm-hmm. You hope for a partner who's going to love and support you. And I have faith that that's going to come one day. But if you're not willing to love me almost as much as I love myself and support me, because I'll build you up, I'll love you, I'll support you, I expect that in return. Yeah. And if you can't give that to me, I'm sorry, I'm not giving away any more of my energy.
One thing I love that you shared is, in a way you said that you want to make yourself valuable to you. Yeah. And that's so massive, because I think so many people struggle with that every single day, is that, they're like, well, I'm just, I don't really do a whole lot. I work in 9 to 5, and I do, these small little things for myself. And, I have a very sort of boring, I have people tell me I have a boring personality, or I have, these small things about me that's like, oh, this is it. Like, that's all I have. But at the end of the day, one thing that you talked about, is that like your worth is yours. Yeah. And that has value regardless completely. Of what it is, and you hold that to be true to yourself. But then on top of that is that you tell other people, it's like, no, my time is valuable.
Yeah,
I know you've told me that. And you're like, Matt, my time is valuable. I only can do this. And I'm like, what? What do you like? We can just, and they're like, no, like my time is valuable. This is what I have available, and this is what it's going to be. And I was like, okay, you know, and I've learned through you, and I think that this is something that's become so important, and I've actually started sharing this, you know, with a lot of people, both, you know, in the clinical world as well as, you know, just personal, is that it's your value is so precious to you. If you believe that your value is important to you, it becomes valuable to other people.
It does.
And I thought that that was just something that has been so awe-inspiring to see. And putting that out into the world is just been sort of like a beautiful self, you know, sort of self-actualization.
Yeah.
In a way.
No, and like even sitting here talking to you about this stuff, like I'm not gonna lie, when I knew we were doing this, I'm like, am I gonna cry? Am I gonna get anxious? Like, yeah. But in reality, when I share these stories and I talk about all this stuff, I'm like, he didn't let me down. My ex didn't let me down. I let myself down. That's what hurts the most, is I wasn't there when I needed me. I'm always there for everybody else, but I couldn't be there for myself. He didn't let me down. I let myself down. And that's what hurt the most. And I tell people that all the time too. I'm like, be careful how you talk to yourself. Be careful how you talk about yourself around others, because that gives them the room to say those things about you too. That's not okay. So I'm like, that's what I mean. Treat yourself how you want other people to treat you. Because if you can't do that for yourself, why should they? Yeah.
No, truly. And, you know, just to, you know, wrap up this incredible discussion that we've had today, I just want to say thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Know, for sharing, you know, this story. And I know it's not exactly the easiest thing to do in the world. And I will say you made it look easy today, talking about these things, you know, but I know that you've also said that, you know, you have been very open and honest about these conversations as well, which I think is something that's so valuable in being able to share. And so with that too is, you know, I want to just kind of come off with, you know, one last question is that, you know, through this healing journey, what has worked for you to keep yourself at the level that you are at and being able to sort of self-heal, but also to grow at the same time?
So on that note too, I just want to say that like, it's easy for me to talk about this right now because throughout all of it, like I've done a lot of self-reflection and replaying of events and stuff like that. And like, it's easy for me to talk about it because I'm proud of myself. Like I'm proud of myself for like not letting that defeat me, not letting me stay in that thing that wasn't serving me. Because as bad as it was, there's people who have it worse and still choose to stay because they're scared. I was scared too, but I'm like, that's why it's so easy for me is I'm proud of myself. And I self-reflect on it a lot. And I'm trying, what was the other question you asked me? I just had to say that when you were saying it. I'm like, I'm proud of myself. That's why it's so easy.
No, that's it. That, you know, the question.
But no, there's another question. What was it?
Talking about the healing journey.
Oh, what's been good for my healing journey?
Yeah, like what's been good for your healing journey?
Because that's also, I love that too, though. And I knew I had a good answer to that.
Okay.
To me, during your low points, when you think it can't get any worse or something like that, realize that it only gets better. Yeah. That's what's really helped me in the healing journey is I literally sat there and I'm like, when I first left, I was like, this might suck for a while. I might not find, and even at that point, I was like, I still want a relationship. Now I'm like, if it comes, it comes. If it does, it doesn't. But I was like, I might be single for a while. I might have to live with my mom for a little bit. Like, I'm like, but I have faith it'll get better. And guess what? It did a lot faster than I thought. Like, I share this story with you a lot of times. I thought I was going to have to, this is what I mean. When you are in alignment with yourself and you just like stand true to who you are and actually take back your power instead of giving it away to people, I thought I was going to have to stay with my mom for a while, which I wasn't happy about, but I knew it was the right direction to head. It was choosing me. That's when my best friend calls me 2 weeks later and is like, hey, I'm going through this thing. I'm kicking this person out of my house. Do you want to move in with me? And that I never expected to happen. So it's kind of like the universe was working in my favor. And shortly after I left him, I actually did get in a relationship, literally like, honestly, 2 weeks after. But I'm convinced I did need that relationship too to keep me away from him. But I knew in myself I was done with him too. So the universe was like, I'll give you a little extra sweet spot too to like help move you on. And then even after all that stuff, me ending that little short-term relationship, me moving out of my friend's house, like, I'm like, it can only get better. Just having faith in that and having faith in yourself. Because I'm like, after that, once again, I'm proud of myself. I have confidence in myself. Like once you know yourself, you know you're going to do yourself right. And it's only going to get better. Just remember that. As long as you have that in mind, like, and you put yourself first, that's all that can come from that.
I love it. No, that is so massive. And just that self-advocation, coming back to exactly, what you know to be true to you.
Putting yourself first though. And that's when I started putting myself first. I started reading more, started educating myself on how to create the life that I want, like started taking time for myself to feel better. And when you feel better about yourself, like you just radiate that and you do better and your life becomes better.
I remember you and I had talked about this because I personally was, even though I'm worked as a therapist, I was like, this is something I personally was like, I don't know how to do, because it's really good to teach everyone, but sometimes it's like really hard to do it yourself.
Oh, completely.
Right. And so I remember when you and I talked about that and you said, I remember you talking about the power of like verbal manifestation and just speaking out into the world, the existence that you want to have and you want to create. And I think that is something that is so powerful in these moments. And granted, even though this topic was in regards to a past relationship, being able to recognize where you were and where you want to be and verbalizing your way, say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. How am I going to get to these next steps?
Yeah.
Reaching out for the help that, is around you. And being able to, find the things that can keep you motivated to keep you going forward is just so impactful. So it's so fantastic to see how you were able to do that and that you are in now such an incredibly different position.
Oh, I love
than you were, right? Than you were 5 years ago.
If you asked me that though 5 years ago, I'd be like, I think I'm okay.
Oh yeah.
No, I freaking love who I am now.
Yes.
And if you don't, like, whatever, I'm good, So.
Yeah. No, and it's been so wonderful to just like experience that journey with you. I know as a friend, just to see you grow and see this incredible light in you. And it's amazing to be able to be a part of that because it feeds so much on other people. And I know that that's something that's often discussed with me, and even people talk to me like, God, Christina has so much positivity and so much energy and she radiates so much light. And I was like, I know. I was like, I work with her, but it's something I think that so many people often struggle with, and to be able to, we talked about today, finding ways to be able to kind of radiate that own light, radiate your own light and then be able to hold it and hold it true to you. And that self-advocation is so important. So I just want to say thank you again so much, for today, for coming on and, and sharing that story in the way that you have it's just beautiful. So thank you.
No, yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it, because like these stories that are so close to my heart are the things that get the most energy out of me. You know what I mean? And I hope that they resonate with the most people and they get the most impact, because everything that I say, especially in regards to my own life, it comes from my heart. And I mean for nothing but good to come out of it, regardless of the people and the scenarios. Like, I'm so forever grateful. And I hope people really can see that and use that as a little bit of light in the darkness to push them forward. Yeah. So
as we close today's podcast, I just want to thank Christina again for being here and sharing with me her story. And also too is that as a disclaimer for anyone out there, as you listen, just know that if you were someone who's ever gone through emotional or physical form of violence, either personally or through relationships or through family, just know that, there are resources out there that can help you.
Also, we want to mention that if you are a victim of verbal or physical violence, you are not alone. There are resources out there to help you. So please reach out and seek them. You're not alone.
And then with that being said, I just want to say thank you all so much for being here today. And until next time, and until next week.
Yeah, until next week.
Until next week.
Thank you guys so much. I love you.